And a very pleasant good afternoon as we welcome you into another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. And at least we have some segment of the Goon and Ironhead Show today, which was not the case Tuesday when we had the Goon and Ironhead Show with no Goon, no Ironhead. Still no Goon today, but I am back and appreciate Booch. I did listen into a good bit of you and Landon
I'm
while I was on the
sorry
road
to hear
on
that.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry for you, Ironhead.
And these are some no, it was terrific. These are some very interesting times, obviously in college football and at Penn State now in particular. And we'll get into all of it.
Is it nice to be
I
not the most interesting story in college football right now?
Yes. How about it? Suddenly, even that coaching search, and as long as it took, doesn't seem like all that big of a deal in the overall scheme of things. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out just how crazy this Michigan story is. It feels like we're going to get more information here sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours, and it feels like once we get that information, our minds are going to be blown. Is what it is feeling
not
like
stuff.
To me. No, it is. It is very concerning. If some of the rumors going around, and the rumors at this point, and we'll wait till the authorities come forth with whatever they are willing to divulge. But if half of the stuff that is being rumored turns out to be accurate, this is really serious stuff and really concerning stuff regarding Sharon Moore. But we'll delve into that a little bit because I do think it creates some obviously very unusual circumstances for that football program moving forward, and certainly they'll look to distance themselves as anybody would as quickly as possible and turn the page. And listen to some of the national talk on that, Booch. I do think Michigan is still one of those premier jobs, and I don't think
absolutely.
I think in some ways, I think in some ways this actually would be a great time to take over because I think if you're just a stand-up person and you feel like you're running a clean program again, that's going to win you a lot of points. I don't know that the pressure that is normally there. Now it will come. I'm not saying, yep, he's going to go a decade, whoever it is, and 500 seasons, and everybody's going to be okay with it. But I do think there's going to be a little more latitude than you would normally presume with a new of the winning and losing component out of the gate here, because they have to be weary from the, whatever you think and believe as a Michigan fan in terms of how bad or not significant the Connor Stallions and Jim Harbaugh cheating scandals were. I mean, this one is obviously horrendous. But I think a couple of things. One is now this next coach is going to be the guy, not the guy replacing the guy that won the national title and is, at least in Michigan circles, revered. So that is one thing, is it right? The old, you don't want to replace the legend. You want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaces the legend. So you have that going for you. But also, again, to me now, at least next year or two, it's like, hey, we just want to get somebody that can bring some stability and some sense of integrity to the programmer.
Yeah, I think you're right. You'll look better by contrast. And I was just talking about it with a friend last night, Ironhead. I think Michigan is actually probably underrated as a job because, the conventional wisdom out there is that Texas is the best job in college football. I don't know that I believe that's true. If it were, you and I are about the same age, Head. Like, it to me kind of feels like Texas has been drafting off accomplishments of Darrell Royal for quite some time. Like, other than the Mac Brown era, I don't know that all this supposedly like turnkey potential in the Texas program has really been actualized. And so I look at it kind of the same way I do USC, because we hear about all the time what a great job USC is. And I say, okay, well, if it's so great, then how come I'm practically 50 years old at this point, and I can tell you Pete Carroll and Mac Brown each had a great run at those programs respectively. And otherwise, I've watched a lot of guys go in there, be told they're taking over one of the best jobs in football and faceplant. Meanwhile, at least you can say in that same time period, there have been multiple coaches who came in and had successful runs at Michigan, and Lloyd Carr and Jim Harbaugh, with all the caveats that are now attached to that, both won national championships. I think it's a very, very good job. I think it's still going to be attractive to some top candidates. I do think Kalen DeBoer is going to be right at the top of the list that Michigan is targeting. And if Kalen ends up leaving Alabama, that's going to kick the crazy carousel right back into gear. Man, don't be shocked if Lane Kiffin leaves LSU at the altar if Alabama comes open. And that's before, speaking of the Texas job, you even consider those rumblings that maybe Steve Sarkisian, who has spent some time in the NFL, is wearying of the pressure of that job and the lunacy of college football and might look to go back to the league. And so you could have a single cycle where Florida, LSU, Alabama, Michigan, Penn State, and Texas all came open. And that's before you factor in, would somebody like Lincoln Riley move to one of the open jobs and USC could open up? So the craziness might be far from over.
Yep. Yeah, that is that is true. And it is going to be just intriguing from the outside looking in to see how all of this plays out. And as you said, I mean, there's still, we got to see what happens here with the Michigan job, who ends up taking it. I do think that there's several interesting things happening out there in college football. The Notre Dame thing, one of the more interesting things to me is while the AD has been all over the place, Marcus Freeman really has not. And I just find that interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know that it is necessarily telling about anything, but it just is, to me, a little unusual that, I mean, Freeman had some initial, I guess, advocating for Notre Dame, which you would expect. I think the AD has gotten a little carried away. But I do find it interesting that Marcus Freeman has not been out there. And now the Michigan job comes open, and you would think at the very least Michigan is going to give a call to Marcus Freeman. Now, whether or not, what he does with that call, I have no idea. But, I think you could do worse, certainly. If you're Marcus Freeman, and he's in a good spot. I mean, I think Notre Dame with the new direction that the playoffs, I guess, are going and promising Notre Dame. Although that whole thing is interesting too, Booch, because now the next one will be Notre Dame gets dropped from 12 to 13 at the last poll and gets left out, and then we're going to have another round of hysteria. But
did you see the rumors that were floating around today that kind of the combination of the details of that memorandum of understanding leaking, that Notre Dame got that special carve out where if they're in the top 12, they make the playoffs, combined with this sort of petulant media tour that Pete Bavacqua, their AD, has been on, is actually precipitating some serious talk among the conferences that it is time to start freezing them out of scheduling agreements. Did you see that today?
Yes, I saw the report. There's a few things in play, and my question, Booch, is it maybe time to, because I've been watching, and there's a lot of people that I respect but I'm disagreeing with their take on this. But then I'm thinking it more through, and I think I can agree with them at the end of the day. It's just we need to change the way the system is set up. So what am I talking about? I'm hearing a lot of talk from a lot of people that what the real problem is that both Tulane and James Madison are in, and nobody wants to see that, and they're both going to get blown out. And I think it is largely true on all counts. I don't think there's a lot of the average everyday fans that are like, all right, this is going to be super. I can hardly wait to see Tulane get the rematch with Ole Miss, which was not exactly a fun, thrilling, instant classic the first time around. And yeah, I don't think there's a ton of people that are super fired up to watch James Madison likely get its doors blown off by Oregon in the playoffs either. So I'm in agreement there, but what my initial argument was going to be, but I've kind of thought this through a little more, but it's like, okay, well, every year we have some matchups in the NFL playoffs that we know or strongly suspect, all right, well, this team just isn't very good. And the Kansas City Chiefs, not this year's Kansas City Chiefs, mind you, but where they're going to blow their doors off. And then you watch the game and, yep, they blow their doors off. And it's like, well, so I'm hearing a lot of the, we don't want to see Tulane and we don't want to see James Madison. Okay, but in no other sport do we try to determine who's in the playoffs based on who we want to see. If that was the case, the Jaguars, who, by the way, you may want to keep an eye on them here with the way they're playing down the stretch, but the national audience for a Jacksonville Jaguars playoff game, yawn. I mean, like, no thanks. But nobody sits there and says, oh, no, the NFL has to redo the way they're doing the playoffs because nobody wants to see this Jacksonville team. Or, again, fill in the blank on a given year where there's a team that either limps into the playoffs or that you just feel like, yeah, I mean, again, they won the division. Somebody had to win the division. But, man, this is going to be god-awful. And sure enough, it ends up being god-awful. Now, every now and then, both in college football, like, could James Madison somehow pull off a miraculous win? Possible. I mean, somewhere along the way, you feel like one of those teams is going to find a day where, yep, that just, man, it's going to be, and then everybody's going to point to that as the epic. But here's where I'm more settled, because my argument all along in college football has been, I think if you are in Division I, it stinks that there's about half of those teams that before the first game kicks off, aren't going to be in the playoffs. It doesn't matter if they win all 12 of their games by 40 points. The MAC champion is not going to be 99% of the time even considered for the playoffs.
Yeah.
With the way things are now shaking out in college football, though, is it maybe time, as we've been talking about, it's likely going to occur anyway at some point, to, all right, let's get this down to the 60 to 70 teams that can play, quote unquote, big time college football. And I don't know that you necessarily relegate the others to Division II status, but, a tier that is lesser than the big boys, if you will, and let them play their games, and maybe you have some crossover games there between the two, but so that I don't know, but I think that's more where I'm at, where it's because truthfully, I mean, I don't know that Indiana is a great story, and I think Indiana they are good enough that they could go win a national title this year, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. That just does not sound like a sentence you should be saying, but I think it clearly is true that they are one of the teams that could go win the national championship this season. That being said, again, it's not like a bunch of college football fans are fired up to watch Indiana, the brand. Now, this
right.
Again, I think captures the imagination. Mendoza obviously is a phenom, and so I think there's some genuine interest there. And hey, can this team really do what I think 2 years ago would have been deemed not just improbable but impossible? Like you're not go for all of the talk that Curt Cignetti had going in when he took that job, and there was a lot of talk, and he has backed it up. But I don't think anybody outside of Curt Cignetti, even in that locker room, truly envisioned that they were going to have back-to-back years in the playoffs. And in that second year, they would go in as the number 1 seed and the only undefeated team in college football. Maybe Curt Cignetti believed it. I don't think anybody else. I don't think anybody on his staff, if you put truth serum in him, I don't think anybody would have bought that, yeah, this is the way this is going to play out for Indiana football.
You'd have to question their mental health if they did, right? Yeah, it is fascinating, man. This year is providing us a very quick heat check of the NIL plus transfer portal era, because I've talked a lot over the years about the lack of first-time national champions in college football. It is just not one of those sports that has a lot of parity to it. And yet, right now, we've got 2 of the top 4 seeds are just complete newcomers in Indiana and Texas Tech. And they got there in different ways, but they both got there via means that were not available to teams until just recently. So it's going to be really interesting to see how both of them fare in this year's playoff bracket. Now, the one thing I will say, and I think I'm probably more in agreement with you than not on stratifying the haves and have-nots here a little bit. In fact, I bet you want to talk about shooting people up with truth serum. I bet if you went to places like Tulane and JMU, they might even tell you that they would like that even a little bit better than be trying to compete with schools like Penn State that are committing $30 million a year to NIL, to say, hey, maybe we would rather just kind of swim in waters with fish our own size and win a championship against programs that are competing with similar resources to the ones we have, instead of just becoming sacrificial lambs who go out to Outson Stadium and get our doors blown off. Yeah. I do think, though, Ironhead, one way that some of the problems that we were experiencing up to and including all the issues Notre Dame had with getting left out of the playoffs, that would be an easy fix and that could have completely been avoided, was if instead of using these weird, complicated intra-conference tiebreakers that nobody understands and don't make a whole lot of sense in an era where, like in the Big Ten, you play 9 games and there's 18 teams in the conference, just take the 2 highest ranked teams in the playoff rankings that are in your conference and put them in your conference championship game. If we are trusting those rankings to say these are the teams that deserve to be in the playoffs, why can't we trust them to say these are the teams that deserve to be in the conference championship game? And had that happened, it would have been, unfortunately for Manny Diaz, no feel-good story for Duke winning that conference title game. But Duke didn't belong in that conference title game. They were 7-5, and Miami would have been playing for the conference title versus Virginia, and they either would have lost, at which point you could reasonably leave them out of the playoffs, or they would have won, and then you could have had Notre Dame and Miami in there, and it would have been, a pretty easy fix. So people forget that the only reason why JMU is kind of vulturing one of these playoff spots is because of the rule that skirts around an antitrust suit that says, oh, we're not guaranteeing a spot to a Power 4 conference champ. It's just the 5 highest ranked conference champions. And when they constructed that system, nobody realistically envisioned a scenario where one of the 4 power conferences would be outside the top 5 highest rated conference champions. And yet in year 2 of the system, here we are.
Yes. And so, yes, part of this is the ACC has to do a better job of, getting its top 2 teams into the conference championship game. That is part of the equation. I do think,
and no one's more set up to be sabotaged by that than the Big Ten. We just dodged the bullet this year because it happened to be Ohio State and Indiana were a cut above all the other teams in the conference, and if you believe the rankings in the country. So we avoided the complication of we got 18 teams in the conference. So it's if a few games would have gone differently, the Big Ten would have had a disastrous logjam in terms of who gets in to play for the title in Indy that would have made the ACCs look like a walk in the park.
Yeah, the one thing that my concern over your proposal is only in that if you have a team and like Notre Dame, I think there's a legitimate argument to be made either way on the head-to-head matchup versus, hey, we're playing better football at the end of the year.
Yep.
Because the problem is, like in the NFL, the results matter. It doesn't matter when the results occur, right? When it comes to tiebreakers, that matters. But the difference is, and this has been the problem for college football all along, and it's not an easily solvable problem, but it is that you have wildly disparate strengths of schedule. And so you may have one team that is playing three unranked teams that are not from Power Four conferences in its non-conference schedule, and then you may have another that is playing two top 25 teams, including one top 5 on the road. And you can't, if that team loses 2 close games, a la Notre Dame this year, and then goes on a run, how do you fairly, and again, I think you can make an argument either way. I could make an argument either way that, yeah, Notre Dame. Now, I think it's also fair to point out that Notre Dame's wins largely came against shoddy competition with
sure.
that winning streak after the opening couple of losses. So it's not like they went out and started knocking off the Ohio States or the Texases of the world. But they won the games that they were supposed to, and they did so resoundingly. They did so in impressive fashion in terms of relative to expectations. They went out and took care of business. Again, I also think Miami has a great case on the, hey, if we're not going to count head-to-head, why play the head-to-head games? That makes no sense. The problem with college football, again, though, is because normally I would say, yes, that is right. But again, if you have wildly disparate schedules and results, therefore, as well, because there's no question Notre Dame's 2 losses, even with the one being head-to-head Miami, those 2 losses are much more forgivable than Miami's 2 losses this season.
Very true.
The caliber of loss is, but you turn around and also, I think, the caliber or the impressiveness of the victories in terms of the credentials of the opponents, not that impressive when it comes to Notre Dame, whereas Miami's win over Notre Dame, that's an impressive win no matter when it comes. So, part of the answer here too, to me, Booch, is as we've been talking about, and again, I think we're heading there. I just think we need to get there quickly, is to set up this commissioner's office or whatever, a centralized office of power that at least, and again, you're never going to get anything fair. I mean, the NFL isn't completely fair. Like, as much as they try to make the schedules balanced, right? Some years there's a team where you look at it at the end of the year, it's like, holy cow, man, they ran a gauntlet. And there's another team that's like, boy, they kind of skated through when you look at the teams they had to play. But there's a genuine attempt, and you're at least getting something comparable with the schedules. They're at least in the same ballpark. It's just sometimes not the case in college football, and especially when you have a Notre Dame as an independent that can set up a schedule to its liking when, the Big Ten, and again, Penn State, no question, is fortuitous to say the least with the schedule it is presented next year with the conference portion of it. But if you have a centralized office, again, just in charge of college football, then I think you at least get, all right, well, we're going to have a game each year where, let's say you have a Big Ten SEC matchup, and we're going to look at trying to match up the teams that are projected anyway to be, top 3 or 4 in the respective conferences, and teams that are toward the bottom of the conferences. And you try to get some sort of, all right, we're going to have some sense of a comparable schedule here. Again, it's never going to be perfect, but it can be a lot better than what it is now in terms of presenting something that, all right, let's try to fairly compare this at the end of the year. Because as we've said, and Goon and I have talked about it a good bit, how do you compare a Penn State win over Florida International in September and a Ohio State, a Texas loss to Ohio State on the road? It's like, well, I mean, you can't. Like, it's not Penn State, if you blow out one of those lower tier teams, like you can't penalize them for blowing them out, but also, I mean, come on, like how much are you going to penalize Texas for going on the road and losing a competitive game against a top 5 team? I think that's the one of the fallacies right now with the college football setup and therefore the entire system.
Yeah.
All right, just looking through some of the comments. Yeah, go ahead.
Good points. No, I was just because I'm with you on all of it, and it is just the age old college football argument, which in some ways is fun, right? I mean, you and I have grown up with this, going back and forth over who played a tougher schedule and who did this or that. It seems to me like it's actually become a little bit more vicious and certainly more high stakes in an era when we're letting 12 teams into the playoffs than when, we would just get to the end of the year and a bunch of sports writers who probably didn't even watch half the games just voted in a poll and the winner got to be the national champion.
Yeah. And listen, the other part of the discussion that keeps coming up is Notre Dame as an independent and versus trying to go through the difficulty of the schedule. And listen, I'll be the first to tell you, when Penn State initially joined the Big Ten, there were a lot of people, national folks and folks that covered the Big Ten, that were saying, listen, I know Penn State's played a good schedule in the past. It's just different when you're in the conference, and Penn State's not understanding how difficult it is. And then Penn State jumps in, goes through the undefeated season in '94. I'm like, these knuckleheads, they don't know what they're talking about. But there is something different about playing in a conference where these teams and coaches start to get to know you and scheme for you. And just like you see in the NFL with the divisions, like there is something to that familiarity. And all right, well, what wrinkles can we throw in to change that up a little bit? Whereas, and again, Penn State was playing. I mean, it was a brutal schedule that Joe Paterno set up in the 1980s. But he also rotated, Notre Dame on and off, Nebraska on and off, Alabama on and off. So while you had that period of years, 4-year period or whatever it was of playing that team, then they rotated out and another power came on. And it is different. We could argue maybe better, worse, whatever. But Notre Dame being able to set up its schedule and, I think is clearly an advantage for them in that regard. But if we get to the point that I think we are heading to, where we have, whether it's, I think it'll end up being 2 super conferences with divisions within it, but let's say it's 4 just power conferences and whatever. I mean, Notre Dame is going to have to pick one of them, because there's just no way you can have just this one outlier and say, all right, we're going to throw in the 4 power champions and all of the runners up, and then the next best 7 teams, and then we'll throw this one team that's just out there hanging on its own. So just at some point, to me, it's inevitable. Now, exactly when that is, whether this is a year or 2 away or this is a decade away, again, to me, it is now pretty obvious that we are heading toward that type of a format. And in part, I think, Booch, it's going to be economically driven, because we are going to need to get back to having a more regional schedule. So you'll have, let's just say it's a Big Ten East. And so the Big Ten East will play, the teams that are fairly close. You'll have whatever the setup is and play another team in the South and maybe one in the West, and then be able to have your game that you can set up against the lower division each year to get that home revenue and all of that. I think that'll all be part of the equation. But then you'll have you're going to be playing just in your region, and then you'll have the championship game against the other region, and then you'll set up the playoff format off of that, which it's just funny that it's taking as long as it has, because that stuff was being talked about in the late 70s, early 80s by folks that thought it was a little odd that college football couldn't figure out a way to actually have a playoff system. And in those days, there were people telling you, oh, no, we just can't. It's the tradition. Classwork is too important. And, these were the same people telling us that you couldn't possibly allow cream cheese spread to be served on bagels to recruits. Not a violation of NCAA.
Plus, the money in the bowl system, Ironhead.
Yes.
How would we replace the money? I will never forget. This is a true story. The recording of it probably still exists somewhere. When Graham Spanier was president of Penn State, he was very involved in NCAA leadership and was on some of these committees that looked at bowls versus playoffs and the whole deal. And he was on the student radio station, and he was being interviewed, and the topic of a playoff came up. And Graham Spanier said with a straight face, and I've always thought I really ought to go back and ask him about this. He just swore up and down, Ironhead, that you could never have a playoff because there was just too much money to be made in the bowl system. And I remembered thinking at the time, whatever, what do I know? I'm just some dumb 20-year-old. But I was thinking, well, wouldn't you potentially make as much or more money with an actual college football playoff? Everybody wants to see that. I would think all the networks would want to televise it. You could probably sell a lot of advertising on a college football playoff. Why do we keep saying that you need to make the money from the bowls? The playoffs could make more money. And all the people in charge of college football back then, late 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, just insisted it was not possible. Now, here we are. Clearly, I was right, and the president of Penn State University was wrong. And so what I want to ask Ironhead, I would love to ask him sometime. It's like, Graham, were you serious about that? Or was that just a line that the bowl people told you to say because they didn't want to get the apple cart upset? But did you really believe that? Because if you did, why? What ever led you to believe that you couldn't make more money with a playoff system? It's just when you go back and you look at some of the dumb excuses that were given for decades in college football for why we couldn't do things that are just a matter of course right now. I just always wonder, were we just dumb and short-sighted for a long time, or lying through our teeth the entire time?
Yeah, I tend to lean more toward the line through their teeth.
You and me both. Yes.
Myself, but I suppose suppose either is at least possible. I'll tell you what, let's take a break here. When we come back, I do want to talk, and we don't know a whole lot yet, really, on the Sharon Moore situation, but truly an unbelievable development there with the Michigan program and Sharon Moore. It's one of those things that I feel like it's hard to get your head around that somebody would sabotage themselves to this degree, both personally and professionally. And I mean, honestly, there's a part of me, because and I'm not saying this facetiously, I mean, there is something wrong with Sharon Moore, if even part of the allegations that are out there are true. And I mean, part of this is I hope he gets the help he needs. And it's clear to me that he needs help. Now, that being said, he also needs punished if the crimes that are alleged did occur. But we'll delve into that a little bit here with Michigan football as we continue. It is the Line Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here on a Thursday afternoon, and we're coming right back. Oh, that is not what I wanted to hit. I say we're coming right back.
From decorating the tree to family dinners, gift exchanges, and get-togethers, the holidays are filled with traditions. Why not start a new one this year with a Kia during the Season of New Tradition sales event at Lion Country Kia? No matter where you're traveling this holiday season, the spacious 7-seater 2025 Kia Telluride can get you there. Lion Country Kia has 16 available with as low as 0.9% APR for up to 60 months or up to $2,000 in Kia finance rebates. But that's not all. Lion Country Kia has a great selection of Kia Sorentos, Sportages, Seltos, and more. There's 84 vehicles ready to move. And many have Kia's Season of New Tradition sales event retail bonus cash as high as $1,000. Happy holidays from the staff at Lion Country Kia, 1334 Driveover Street off Shiloh Road behind Sam's Club, State College.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
Lusk & Associates Sotheby's International Realty proudly presents the introduction of our new State College office at 314 South Borough Street in State College. At Sotheby's International Realty, we advertise locally, nationally, and internationally, bringing the best of advertising and promotion to each and every one of our properties, big or small. Call now.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors, people invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
WFXS, once again, the Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority, WFXS America.
98.7, the Fox State College.
And we are back here on a Thursday afternoon as here at Quaker Steak and Lube. We invite you, man, this is a great place to come down and watch your favorite sports teams. Both the Penguins and the Flyers will be in action tonight at home. Of course, we have the bowl season kicking off here next week. We've got NFL action and all of it on the TVs, which are plentiful here at Quaker Steak and Lube. You can enjoy great food, great beverages, and great service to boot. So we invite you to come down to Quaker Steak and Lube, our home away from home here on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4 on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox. And we are very, very happy about the partnership we have forged over the years here with Quaker Steak and Lube. All right, Michigan, again, this thing, apparently, Booch, at least, I don't know, you feel like you're a little more connected. This caught me completely off guard. Apparently, Michigan folks, there had been some stuff rumored, and apparently there was an investigation that the university conducted, and then they couldn't find anything that was, at least they felt, provable or worthy enough to merit action. And then suddenly, I guess there was new information for it, and obviously it was pretty damning information, because not only does Michigan make the firing and make the announcement that it is with cause, but there's Sharon Moore now in jail, waiting. Now what we're hearing is going to be charges filed tomorrow, but they're holding them in jail, Booch, which makes you think, like, this isn't assault is was at least initially being reported. You're not usually holding somebody in prison for a couple of days because they went out and somebody else. Certainly not somebody that has the resources that Sharon Moore has. So again, I think we're going to learn officially a little more here over the next 24 hours or so. But man, this is sounding like a very serious situation that Sharon Moore has gotten himself into here.
Yeah, some of the national voices, Josh Pate in particular, have indicated that they caught wind of this thing weeks ago. Just as an aside, I am not a huge fan of that approach. I understand that sometimes in journalism, and look, Josh is kind of in the same spot that I'm in. He's not really a journalist. I've certainly never claimed to be, and I don't think he has either. But even sometimes as a normal, regular old working reporter, you have information that you can't disclose for one reason or the other. Either you don't have enough verification for it, or there's just a bridge that you don't want to burn. The story is not worth the relationship you would trash if you bring it to public light. If that's the case and you can't bring it out before the story breaks, don't come and brag about how you knew about it after everyone else knows too. Like, if you were keeping it to yourself before, for whatever reason, personal or professional, then guess what? Keep it to yourself afterwards. I'm not impressed after the story's all over the internet if you go online and say, well, I knew about this a month ago. Well, good for you. Now we all know about it. So that does you or me no good. So I just shut up at your face, huh? Just sometimes that gets under my skin a little bit. I had no indication whatsoever that there was some sort of shoe about to drop on Sharon Moore from a personal conduct standpoint, but there definitely were pretty strong vibrations out there that the Michigan job could come open this cycle, and if it didn't, it was going to take a Herculean effort. We're talking 10 or maybe more regular season wins next year for Sharon Moore to last. Because if you go all the way back to when he was hired, it was one of those situations where you kind of felt like Michigan didn't really conduct a thorough search. They just wanted to have some stability and get out of the headlines. And the results, I think, have not been as bad as people have made them out to be, but the expectations there are very high. The standard was a national championship under Jim Harbaugh. So people were really frustrated. So just the fact that Michigan was maybe looking for a reason to get rid of the guy, if we're being honest, doesn't shock me. And I definitely had heard, don't be surprised if no matter what happens in the regular season, even if they do win 9 games, if they don't beat Ohio State, maybe this goes south pretty quickly for him. Now, that could have been people speaking in code who were, circulating rumors without wanting to say the nasty part out loud, but they knew it or they had gotten some wind of it. But me personally, I hadn't caught any indication of that, other than that the guy was probably in some serious trouble professionally.
Yeah, it did feel like Michigan was going to have trouble getting back to the top of the Big Ten with more there. Scandal aside, whatever this ends up turning out to be. So, he was in some trouble anyway, professionally, in terms of keeping the head coaching job just on the performance. And I think just kind of the feel around the program is I don't think a lot of Michigan people believe that Sharon Moore was going to be the guy that was going to get Michigan back up over going into this season, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. And, now you would throw in Indiana, obviously, and I think USC as well. So the thing that it just always rubbed me wrong, Booch, again, from the outside looking in, is you had a cheating scandal, actually a couple of them really, with that Michigan program. And while Sharon Moore wasn't directly implicated, I always thought it would be better for Michigan to just get a clean break from that entire situation. And it just felt like by hiring Moore, and when he was sitting there with the tears, and when he was filling in for Harbaugh, because that just felt wrong to me. That Michigan's not getting this, and not that I didn't foresee anything like what's happening now happening, but it just felt like, man, you're leaving the opportunity there for more on-field challenges, and at least, speculation, hey, I wonder if Michigan's still doing this. Hopefully, and it feels like now they have to know, right? Like, they're going to make a clean break. They're not going to be hiring somebody else from within this staff. Like, it's going to be somebody they're bringing in. It'll be a national search, and it feels like they have to know that they are going to need to pretty much, if not in fact, entirely clean house.
That makes a lot of sense. Nevertheless, you continue to see Jesse Minter's name right at the top of the list of likely candidates for the job. He's the defensive coordinator right now for the Chargers, and was the defensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh. Jim brought him along with him out to LA. To your point, man, I agree with you, Ironhead. When I saw Minter listed among the top 3 or 4 candidates for the job in a few different places, I thought, I don't really know if you want to go back down that road.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I would love to see Brian Kelly get the job myself.
You and me both. The program and coach who deserve one another.
Yes. I'm personally rooting for that. I think there's zero chance of it, but I'll be rooting for it nonetheless. Yeah, it just, I do wonder how, so, let's just go to the practical implications here. So you have to figure, Booch, that the college football is all about taking advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. You have to figure that the Michigan players, the Michigan recruits, are now looked at as fair game. And yep, Penn State needs some players, needs some guys to fill this roster. I do wonder how aggressively and how particularly they are going after at least some of the Michigan either players and or recruits right now. You have to figure that they're at least working the phones a bit here to see who might be interested.
Yeah, especially when you consider, Ironhead, that Penn State and Michigan have been going head to head for recruits multiple times over the last several years. We're actually able to bring Owen Wayful over through the transfer portal this past offseason. So there's a familiarity there, which I think, although I'm not a huge fan of the transfer portal, I've said again and again, one of the benefits that I like is that it used to be that if you missed on a kid in high school recruiting, all the time and effort you put in building that relationship was just a waste. It was gone. Now you're often banking all of that capital to get another swing later on if for whatever reason he ends up in the portal. So yeah, I think for sure, this is an opportunity for Penn State to be able to bring in the type of Big Ten caliber talent that you want to be replacing departures, like a guy like Elliot Washington, who just declared for the portal earlier today. We could stand to be one of the programs that benefits the most from chaos in Ann Arbor.
I think that's true, and I think I'm trying to envision if you are like a Michigan player or the parent of a Michigan player, like how stressful this particular case must be, and whether or not you're willing to wait around and, all right, well, let's see, give this a chance to settle in on whoever the next coach is, or I got to get out of here and figure out something else and get a fresh start. Again, it didn't feel like it was Michigan just felt like it was treading water, which, I mean, it was in a good place. So it's not that they, treading water was an awful thing, but it just felt like they were kind of destined here under Sharon Moore to be 8-4, 9-3 most seasons. Maybe you get 10-2 a year here. Maybe you fall to 6-6 a year there. But it just felt like they were not going to be making a lot of headway in the top of the Big Ten, which, by the way, as we've talked, I think is a really hard thing to do. Like, it's not some sort of damning indictment of Sharon Moore's coaching abilities. It's why, getting this hire is so critical for Penn State. It is not easy once you slip a notch to just climb back up into that top 3 or 4. Even in the conference, because there's a lot of programs with a lot of resources, very good coaches, all trying to do the same thing and create, again, a consistent winner. And I think you have, to me, with Michigan at the moment, out of that equation, I still think there's probably 5 or 6 programs that feel like they are well positioned to be among the contending teams next year. And I think Penn State is kind of remains to be seen as to whether or not they can be. I think certainly sooner rather than later, within a couple of years, I would expect Penn State. It feels like they need to be in that position. But again, certainly Oregon, Ohio State, those expectations are there every year. USC with this recruiting class and with the way they finished up this past season feels like they think they should be in that mix. Indiana, obviously, now is a program that feels like, hey, yeah, we're here for the long haul. I think Washington is trending in the right direction again, and I kind of thought that would happen. So, there's a lot of good teams, a lot of resources at a lot of these Big Ten schools. And so for Michigan, again, this next hire to me, Booch, is critical in terms of both getting the right coach, but to me, it is making that break here from the Harbaugh-Moore regime. And I can't imagine that they're going to maybe they will. I don't know the inner workings. I think somebody in the athletic department, you would hope the AD would say, listen, we cannot have ties to what was going on here at any point over these last 4 years. We just have to break away from that and get a clean, fresh start here.
Yeah, a couple of notes. I think that makes sense. A couple of notes here. I was blanking on the young man's name. So I went back. I'm looking at just the 2026 class that just signed with Michigan. They got 5 recruits from the Six recruits from the DMV. That's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area where Penn State has done very well recruiting, including defensive end Carter Meadows, 5-star edge rusher. Penn State was in on, had a visit to campus. That young man's phone should be ringing with Matt Campbell on the other end of it. Most certainly. They've got 2 other commits from Ohio who are right inside Penn State's footprint. So just from high school recruits, who I think Penn State still has a chance to bring back into the fold via the transfer portal, I think those are contacts that probably need to be made. And I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit about what's happening in terms of the way Matt Campbell's staff is evolving. A lot of guys coming over from Iowa State. Partially, I think that's just impacted by the calendar and the need to be able to provide some stability and have answers to the questions of who's going to be coaching this team next year as you're trying to re-recruit your own guys, bring guys in through the transfer portal as well. So sticking on the topic of the calendar and how it works against Michigan here, don't forget that once they hire their new head coach, whenever it is, that guy will have 5 days to re-recruit Michigan's roster, and then they'll have 15 days to enter the transfer portal. Well, what if this thing drags on for a couple of weeks, Ironhead, and that ends up lining up with the free-for-all national transfer portal window? If you're Michigan, you got a lot of moving pieces where you don't know who's coming and who's going, and you're trying to evaluate talent and onboard a new staff and figure out who's going to be wearing maize and blue next year. You've probably got Lane Kiffin and LSU on the phone with Bryce Underwood, trying to get him back to Baton Rouge, which is where he was originally committed. And I would think they probably will have an NIL deal that could match the money that Michigan came up with for him. And then what happens if it's Kalen DeBoer who takes the Michigan job? Then it's like, are you poaching kids from Alabama? Who's the next coach of the Crimson Tide? Is that Lane Kiffin? What's going on with LSU? We thought it was crazy up to this point. It might get exponentially worse or more entertaining, depending on where you are in the equation, than it was for the last month.
Yeah, fair enough. Again, so many moving parts just in college football generally, and then you throw this into the hopper and you start looking at, from a Penn State perspective, again, Michigan on paper, Booch, maybe the game that you were most worried about next year. Now, I'm not saying definitively that you're now not worried about it, but right at the moment, I'm not nearly as concerned about that game as I was a couple of days ago. For sure next year. And again, we got to see how everything plays at State and in Ann Arbor before we figure out. But, that schedule that already looks like, a gateway to a playoff opportunity now looks like maybe even more advantageous for Penn State and for Matt Campbell here in his first season at the helm of the Nittany Lions. But again, right now, we don't really know what the roster is going to look like for Penn State. And I think this next week or so, Booch, is going to be pretty telling, because I do think it's interesting that, I think Washington today, but he's the first one. Am I right about that, Booch? I haven't seen anybody else say they're entering the portal here from Penn State.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you don't count, which I don't, Joey Schlaffer, who announced probably almost a month ago now that he was getting in the portal, and that I think was just a function of the logjam at tight end. That was almost inevitable. Yeah. That one or more of those tight ends in that room were going to transfer because they just didn't see a path to playing time. So, yeah, in terms of who is responding to the coaching change and getting in the portal, I think Washington is the first. I don't know if you're getting any rumblings through the earth on this. Nothing I have heard has made me optimistic. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just taking the Philly fan approach, which is set your expectations low and then be pleasantly surprised if they aren't met. But I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more names in the portal before all is said and done.
Yeah, so there's a few things that I don't think we're ever going to know, and we probably shouldn't know, but genuinely curious as to how some of the discussions that are occurring this week and probably into next week are actually playing out. Because one of the things, like under James Franklin, most of the defections that Penn State had, you felt pretty confident they were kind of prompted. Like, hey, you might be happier somewhere else. You might get more playing time, more so somewhere else. And, Penn State was trying to free up some scholarships. What I do think is fascinating, and again, I mean, we'll know numbers wise how this plays out, but like how many of the guys, what I would love to be able to sit in on is the conversation or conversations likely between Terry Smith and Matt Campbell on this roster, because I think Terry's has a very good eye for talent and for what's working and what's not working. And I would love to know, as they're going through the roster and the different positions, Terry's honest take on, hey, maybe we tell this guy we don't think he'd be a great fit here with this system, or which guys like, man, we've got to figure out a way, one way or another, if we can sweeten the pot a little bit and whatever, we've got to keep these group of players. I would be fascinated, both in terms of talent wise, but also, man, this is the guy that will fit the blue collar mode and kind of the all in effort that it sounds like, I guess every coach is going to say that's what we want. But I mean, it does feel like there's maybe going to be more of a priority on effort versus talent here. And obviously where you can get both, that's what you're shooting for. But, which guys really are going to make the cut here, and which of the Penn State guys that both Campbell and Smith would really like to retain are like, nah, I'm out of here regardless. Right. It just would be fascinating to know. I don't know. It's interesting.
It would be fascinating, but please, nobody sneak a recorder into the meetings and leak the audio. We don't need to know that bad.
For the love of God. Yeah, that whole thing is just ridiculous to me. And I know. Like Pat Kraft realizes it didn't paint him in a great light, but I don't think it painted him in nearly as bad a light as what many are making that out to be. Because I mean, what he's telling you is he wants to make sure he's getting this hire right. And language aside, and I'm sorry, I think most of the college athletes haven't heard the F-bombs drop before. God bless you.
I think, not to derail on that
topic, we're going to do everything we can to get this right.
Yeah. Not to go too far down that rabbit hole. I just, since you and I have not shared the airwaves since that came out in any forum, I do just think Pat was kind of flailing a little bit last week in the wake of the Kalani Sitake thing, and that thing. Normally, that sort of story would just be like another nail in your coffin. And instead, I think it was a lifeline. I think it actually helped them out. It generated a lot of positive response from the fans who liked getting that window into the passion he has and how much he wants to win. And then before any of the, maybe less flattering aspects of it could catch hold, they announced the Matt Campbell hire, and then it was gone.
Yeah. To me, and my issue with that is much more on whoever leaked it. And we talked about it on our morning show a little bit. I'm not a fan. I know some are, you've got to find out who leaked it and get rid of them. I think if you can, you find out who leaked it, and internally you at least have the conversation and see, I'm not big on throwing 18 to 22-year-olds just out with the garbage here. I think, maybe in part because of my own experiences, and I know what a knucklehead I was and some of the decisions I made of life. And I just think you look back at some of the great success stories for Penn State they were kids that made some bad decisions, from Bobby Engram, who was mentioned for a while there as a head coaching candidate, to Dan Connor for crying out loud. And I don't know what's happening there with Dan either. I'd love to see him stay, but I don't know that there's anybody. Like, there are some guys I would love to see stay, and I guess there's at least a report out there that Connor either may not be retained or may be leaving of his own accord. We'll wait and see how that all plays out. I'd love to see Deion Barnes stay. I don't know that there's anybody now that they're retaining Smith, Booch. Again, there are guys I would like to see retained for sure. I don't know that there's anybody really else on the staff that I look at as, man, that they can't possibly lose that guy. I think it's going to be important, if you lose some of those guys, that you get a really good hire in their place and feel confident that on the recruiting front and everything else that it'll work. But I don't know that I look at anybody and say, man, this thing just is not going to succeed. No way this thing moves forward if you don't retain this guy. Again, there's several there. Certainly Connor and Barnes would be at the top of the list for me that I'd like to see retained. But I think when you look at Matt Campbell coming in, he's gonna put together. I trust in him putting together the staff that is going to work for him through the transition period here anyway for this next year or two.
Yeah, we're aligned. You named the two guys who I would like to be able to keep. I would have loved to keep Poindexter as well, but I never saw that as a realistic possibility. So I don't even really mention him when I talk about coaches I'd like to keep. And it does look like there's going to be a safeties coach coming in from Iowa State. So I think that's even more of an indicator that Dex is moving on. I will say he's a Virginia guy. He's a UVA alum. So I'm sure he could find a spot on James Franklin's staff if he wanted to. I think he's ready to make the move to be a defensive coordinator somewhere. And I do hope that he gets his chance. Not at Michigan. I don't want to face him. I don't want to recruit against him. But I do really hope that Dex gets a chance to go be a DC somewhere, if not this season, real soon.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. All right, let's take a break here. When we come back, let's maybe talk about at least for you and I, Booch, the players that we'd like to most like to see retained by Penn State if they can. We'll delve into that when we come back on the other side of this time out. We'll take a break here. You are listening to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fox. And again, we're coming right back to Quaker Steak Lube.
From decorating the tree to family dinners, gift exchanges, and get-togethers, the holidays are filled with traditions. Why not start a new one this year with a Kia during the Season of New Tradition sales event at Lion Country Kia? No matter where you're traveling this holiday season, the spacious 7-seater 2025 Kia Telluride can get you there. Lion Country Kia has 16 available with as low as 0.9% APR for up to 60 months or up to $2,000 in Kia finance rebates. But that's not all. Lion Country Kia has a great selection of Kia Sorentos, Sportages, Seltos, and more. There's 84 vehicles ready to move. And many have Kia's Season of New Tradition sales event retail bonus cash as high as $1,000. Happy holidays from the staff at Lion Country Kia, 1334 Driveover Street off Shiloh Road behind Sam's Club State College.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
Lusk & Associates Sotheby's International Realty proudly presents the introduction of our new State College office at 314 South Borough Street in State College. At Sotheby's International Realty, we advertise locally, nationally, and internationally, bringing the best of advertising and promotion to each and every one of our properties, big or small. Call now.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors. People invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
WFXX, once again, the Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority, WFXS America.
98.7, the Fox State College.
And we are back here on this Thursday afternoon. It's the Goon and Ironhead show with Ironhead and Chris Buchanani, kind enough to fill in again here today with all kinds of news out there, and kind of just I keep waiting to see more players opting out of the bowl game as well, Booch. And I know Terry Smith expressed optimism that they weren't going to have a lot of guys, and it is. I'm starting to get the feeling that we're not going to have a lot of guys, not as many as I would have thought certainly a couple of weeks ago, that will opt out. And we'll wait and see. Again, I think we'll learn some more names here that will opt out in short order. But that's another thing to keep watching for here. Certainly, Zakee Wheatley and Zane Durant. Makes sense in both counts, and I think for fans, you just have to understand the world we're living in now, and whether you like it or not, it's just the reality that these guys, in particular this year, Booch. I just look at it as they have their sights set on a national championship. They're looking at the Pinstripe Bowl. No disrespect to those in charge of the Pinstripe Bowl. It's a neat opportunity to play in Yankee Stadium. I think Clemson is as good of a matchup here from a brand standpoint as you could possibly have had. So I think it's really cool. I also think if you have a chance to go chase your dream of playing in the National Football League, does not make a whole lot of sense to risk that dream for the opportunity to play a 7-5 team in a baseball stadium. I fault nobody that made choice for Penn State or anybody else moving forward.
Yeah, very fair.
As far as, and again, there are going to be some others, but
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But I think when you look at the this roster for Penn State, I'm maybe a little more optimistic now than you are in terms of I'll say retaining the players that I want to see retained. I'll put it that way. I think are important. Now, I think in terms of numbers, yeah, I think there's going to be a fair number of defections. Certainly much more than we're used to seeing here over the last several years from Penn State hitting the transfer portal. But a couple of things. I think there is a genuine sense of optimism about the program and the future here now with Matt Campbell. I can't imagine that he isn't winning some players over when he's meeting with them, or even if they just watch the introductory press conference. I don't think you'd look at that and say, wow, there's no way I'm going to play for that guy. Now, again, everybody's in their own circumstance. Again, I get it if you committed to James Franklin and that's your guy. We've seen, obviously, a number of players already make that move. No doubt there's going to be some more, and understand that and wish them well. I do think Penn State's going to target, I don't know how many players, but a certain after the conversations that I'm presuming are happening with Terry Smith, particularly and Matt Campbell, that, hey, all right, we're going to target these 6 to 12 kids, and I'm not going to say they'll do whatever it takes, but yeah, let's see if we can up the ante enough here to make sure that they feel like this is still their home. Now, which players those are, I think, is going to be fascinating. And we may not know. We're going to know, obviously, who stays, who's on the roster next year. And I think that'll give you an indication if, for example, a Tony Rojas is on the roster next year. They probably ponied up pretty nicely, and that conversation went better than I think anybody would have anticipated, let's say a week ago, regarding Rojas. But, to me, Rojas is a guy I would really be targeting as, this is somebody we really want to keep. I'm not going to say need to keep, because, again, I don't know that there's a single player that it's like, all right, if they lose that guy, forget it. No chance. Because, again, there's going to be other good players out there. And now if you lose at Rojas and you bring in nothing better than a 3-star recruit, that's going to be a concern. like having a big-time linebacker and a linebacking core that right now is very thin, that feels like a huge loss. But again, you lose Rojas and you bring in a couple of 5-stars, or you bring in a proven linebacker from another Power 4 conference. Okay, it's like maybe at the end of the day it's a wash. But in the moment, to me, Rojas, Grunkemeier's an interesting one, Booch, because I really like what we've seen from him these last couple of weeks. And his not to when you look at the numbers, but it's not even just the numbers. It was just kind of the way he carried himself, the way he was running that offense. For me, I would really prioritize Grunk. To me, that is your quarterback of the foreseeable future here, and I think that is a guy that you can build your offense around. I really do. I was really impressed in those first couple of games, and I even said it. I'm like, you got to be fair to him. Like we were seeing him thrust into this. You can't judge him by going out there in the circumstances he was thrown into with a new coach, and you're facing two of the best defenses in the country and all of that. But man, his growth, the baptism by fire, I think served him well. I think he quickly grew into a guy that looks like he can not only be a D1 quarterback, but can be a future star at the position.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said, Ironhead. I think if you just look at where he was in the Iowa game, and then you chart his obvious, just kind of growth in his comfort level and the plays he was making, some of the throws he showed that he was capable of over the course of those 6 games, I thought he absolutely established that he can play at this level. And yeah, given my choice, I suppose I would like to keep him around. Again, I don't want to seem like I'm constantly throwing the bucket of cold water on things here, but I do think Rocco Becht is coming over from Iowa State. I do think that there are class of 27 recruits that Matt Campbell was in on that he is looking to bring to Happy Valley. I just don't know that, having had the experience of starting for 6 games and putting what he did on tape, that Grunk is going to be willing to be open to a quarterback competition with an established fifth-year guy who's coming over with the new head coach, when he's going to have good opportunities to go elsewhere and be more or less installed as the starter in the same way that Bo Pribula was during the last offseason. So I know a lot of people have that attachment to Grunk because of the way he played the last 6 games, and I get it. I feel that too. My advice is don't get too attached too quickly, because if I had to put money on him being here next season, I wouldn't make the bet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also, again, it's another one of those. I really would love to hear the conversation, like what they're sharing with him, what he's sharing with them. Like it just would be fascinating, because my feeling is that both Grunk would be certainly honest with them about his assessment of the situation, but I also think Campbell and Smith would be honest with him about, you know what, we're bringing this guy in. I think Campbell would tell him, I'm leaning toward him being the starter, but obviously we want to put the best quarterback out there, and if you show us that you're clearly the best option, you're going to be the guy. I mean, you have to think the conversation is going something like that. But to your point, if you're Grunk right now, I think you feel like, hey, I am a starting quarterback, and I need to be. I could see him saying, I need to be looked at as such.
And a quarterback needy team will be in a position to compensate him in a way that Penn State would not. To be in a competition with an established guy.
Yeah, well, that is certainly true as well. And that's.
I'm sorry, by the way, the person who says I sound like Kevin Horn. Kevin has just become the poster boy for anything that is not all sunshine and rainbows, like Mike the Mailman. I really do just try to call him like I see him, and if I thought there was a better, just kind of like my own gut instinct and kind of the few conversations I've been able to have with folks, if I thought there was a better chance of keeping Grunk, I would say it, and I would love to be wrong. It's just that, and Goon has talked about this so many times on this show, Ironhead, quarterback especially is the one position now where, with the mobility these guys enjoy and the market for their services, it is just so hard to convince a guy to be patient and wait another year when there's a job and a paycheck waiting for him. And we saw that with Bo last year. So that's just why everything I am seeing and hearing is that Rocco Becht is coming. The move to bring Taylor Mauser, the ISU OC, over here to Penn State to have the same job. All of the tea leaves say that Rocco Becht's a Nittany Lion. And if that's the case, I struggle to envision a scenario where Grunk defers his development. But again, I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah, and again, to me, part of it is at least, again, how those conversations go. And listen, it may be that at the end of the day, Terry Smith and Matt Campbell may sit down with Grunk and say, listen, we love you. We want the best for you, and the best for you, like, you are a starting quarterback. You're just not our starting quarterback. And I mean, it may be, a mutual parting of the ways where it's like, hey, we know you're really good, but we think this other guy is better, or whatever the case may be. And there's going to be a lot of those conversations, again, up and down the lineup, and it is going to be interesting to see what this roster looks like next year. How many of the guys that are currently Penn Staters are still Penn Staters next year? How many of the guys that are currently at Iowa State are Penn Staters next year? And the guys, the class of 2027 is also going to be obviously now a crucial class for Matt Campbell and for Penn State,
Yeah.
And how many of the guys that, he had committed to Iowa State are going to end up following him here. How many of them does he definitively want to follow him here? Again, there's probably some guys that you're taking at Iowa State because, hey, yeah, I think you're good enough to help us out here. Well, now that you're at Penn State, maybe you're looking at it as, I'm not sure you're helping us at Penn State. And I don't know that. I mean, there's at least a couple of guys there. It's like kind of same thing. We'll have the conversation, maybe stay with Iowa State or see if there's somewhere else, but Penn State might not be the right fit for you. So
it depends on what the roster need is. If you have a mass exodus at Penn State, then maybe you look to lean more heavily on your Iowa State guys because they are familiar commodities. I will say this, going back to the Grunkenmeyer point, I see some questions where people are asking about who's quarterback 2. Man, I don't think Jackson Smolek's going to stick around, and he might be another guy that maybe you don't try too hard to keep, if I'm being honest. And so I do think if Grunk decides to go, you might see 2 portal quarterbacks come in.
Yeah.
But if I were trying to keep Ethan, my sales pitch to him would be this. Grunk, just imagine they trim the grass a little bit less often at Beaver Stadium. And that fumble ends up getting called in the Oregon game, and we win that. And everything else plays out differently except for Drew gets injured in the Northwestern game. Then you were handed the keys to a championship contender last season, and you showed us that you can play at this level. And so you will be, even if you don't win the competition, you will be a heartbeat away from the starting job next season. And Rocco is out of eligibility. It is at worst 1 more year. And, maybe if you feel strongly enough about the kid, and quarterback 2 is such an important position that maybe you are willing to overpay a little bit. There's something to be said for familiarity. And as we've seen, there was a pre-existing relationship there. Matt Campbell was recruiting Grunk when he was a high school player. Maybe you make that pitch, and I'm not saying you're going to pay him like a starter because they just won't do that. They won't be able to. But maybe you're willing to pay him a little bit better than you normally would a redshirt sophomore backup, and you do keep him in the fold. So I don't think it's a lost cause. And for sure, whether it's Grunkemeyer or somebody you pull out of the portal, I do not think you go into next season with any of the scholarship guys on the roster as your quarterback 2.
Yeah. Again,
the non-Grunk scholarship guys, I'm saying.
Yeah. And that's so part of what's so fascinating here is that, you don't know, one, who all is coming in from Iowa State in terms of the other positions now I'm talking about. And, who is it on this Penn State roster that's like, listen, I'm not even listening to the sales pitch. I got to get out of here. I'm ready to move on. And there's going to be at least a handful of those guys that, whether they're going to follow Franklin or they just want to get a fresh start somewhere else. It's like, this was too tumultuous of a year. I got to get, and I can understand that. I really can.
And don't forget that somebody who is a depth piece on Penn State's roster could be a very valuable starter to a team a little bit further down the pecking order, which means there's going to be a better NIL offer on the table for that guy. Yeah. And everybody is going to get that extra bite of the apple with the 15-day window to recruit our players. Once the 5 days elapses, which I think is at the end of this week, as far as I've been able to tell, although I can't get a definitive answer on that because I don't think anybody even really understands the NCAA rules, if I'm being honest, Ironhead. But some of these guys, they're not going to follow James Franklin.
And NCAA knows.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, no, we can't get a straight answer from them because they don't know themselves. I would believe that 100%. But there are going to be guys that don't follow James Franklin and they don't go to another power program. They just go to another ACC school, or they go to a lower tier Big Ten program, or they go out into the Big 12 because somebody looks at a guy like Elliott Washington and says, you're probably not going to be cornerback 1 or 2 at Penn State. Even if everybody on the roster stayed, Ironhead, I think there are underclassmen who would surpass a guy like Elliott. And there would be a team that could say, hey, you're going to come here, you're going to be an every down starter for us, and we value that at this dollar amount, and it's way more than you're going to be valued at Penn State. And so that dynamic is going to be in play too, and it's going to have nothing to do with these guys are mad about James Franklin getting fired or Terry Smith not getting hired, or they don't like Matt Campbell. It's going to be a financial decision, pure and simple.
Yeah, and I think, and listen, Penn State's going to be making, and Matt Campbell's going to be making some financial decisions of their own here. Again, on all right, which are the players that we want to make sure we invest in to get them to stay, that we think are going to be valuable pieces, both athletically and from a leadership standpoint, which, that leadership component is going to be big next year, Booch. And again, it may be a bunch of kids that aren't on the roster right now that emerge as the leaders of the program next season. But getting those guys that are the right guys leading the program, doing the right things, and again, buying all into the Matt Campbell way of doing things is going to be crucial, certainly to have some success next year, but more so to me, Booch, it's going to be laying the foundation for what you hope is some long-term success down the road. But you got to get some of those pieces right out of the gate here. And I think you're going to have some players, as you said, that are like, hey, I can't turn down the financial opportunity here at another school. And I think there's going to be some realignment here that they're going to be that Penn State will have with some of the players that they're like, this was great and all, but I think I can get more elsewhere. And Matt Campbell's going to come and say, well, actually, this is what you're going to get this year if you come back. And well, maybe Penn State is the right place for me. So we'll just have to wait and see again how all of that plays out. And it's funny because I just saw somebody trying to project, and really it's funny to do it for anybody right now, trying to project how I think Penn State's going to go 10-2 or maybe even 11-1 next year. Well, how are you making? I mean, I get the schedule component, but we have zero idea what this roster is going to be.
Yeah, that is crazy. Crazy talk.
Now, go ahead, Booch.
So just to put a button on what you said before, Noble said on the obligatory podcast, and I thought this was a really good point. I asked him, the number of coaches coming over from Ames and potentially, I talked to Landon and he says on tape, he doesn't think there's more than but 5 or 6 kids on Iowa State's roster right now who could really quote unquote play at Penn State. And so I asked Noble, I said, are we dipping into the JV ranks a little bit too much here and bringing these guys up to play in the big leagues? And his point was to speak to what you said. If you're going to have roster turnover, there is value in bringing in your guys, even if they're just there to be culture setters, that you're not going to have a lot of leadership on a team like that. And so you import it with people who know you, they know how to work the way you want them to work, and they can set the standard. And it's not even so much as what they're doing on the field. It's what they're doing the rest of the week to help you establish what you want to do. Because I know there's a really great book that came out about a year and a half ago. It's called Men in White. It's by Chris Raymond. I can't recommend it enough to Penn State fans. Really good oral history of Penn State football from the post-scandal era to beyond the Big Ten championship in 2016.
Yep.
And there are really interesting insights in there into all the friction inside the program when you switched from Bill to James. And there were a lot of guys who had gone through all of that upheaval with the transition from Joe to Bill O'Brien, and then had finally come to trust Bill and felt like they kind of had their feet underneath them. And then the rug gets pulled out underneath them again, and they have to get used to this guy coming in from the outside, and it just never meshed. And so I think about that. It's obviously there are some particulars of the situation that are very different. But when you think about James Franklin gets fired in rapid succession, the team gets emotionally attached to Terry Smith. There's all that momentum to make him the head coach, and then it doesn't happen, and in comes a guy from the outside. Maybe a way that you can preempt some of those issues that happened in 2014 and 2015 is that you're not going to have the problem James Franklin had, which is you were inheriting the entire locker room of the old guy, because many of those players are going to be gone. Many are going to be gone just because they're out of eligibility, and more are going to go into the transfer portal. So maybe you can accelerate that transition process if you bring people in who know the way you ran the program at Iowa State. So it's not necessarily you bring in whatever 10, 12, 15 guys, numbers comparable to what Kurt Signetti brought from JMU to Indiana, because you think you're getting 15 contributors. Maybe Landon's right. You're only bringing in 5 guys who are going to start or who are going to play a lot of snaps. But you have a big chunk of your roster for 2026 who knows this is what a Matt Campbell program looks like Sunday through Saturday. So, I think there's a logical argument to be made for bringing in that number of coaches and players with the condensed calendar to just get this thing up and functional as quick as possible.
Yeah. And I think identifying quickly the players that are here that want to stay here and want to be part of this Matt Campbell era, the launching of it, and that again, it's forming that trust both ways with the coaching staff and the player, and the player and the coaching staff. And there's going to be some guys. Again, I don't know whether we're talking about 15 to 20 guys or 40 to 50 guys, but there's going to be some guys that, you know what, after meeting Matt Campbell and knowing Terry's still going to be here, I want to give this a go, and I think I can, buy into this system. And I think, getting that right mesh is going to be important for this first year. But listen, they're going to have to hit the transfer portal, and they're going to have to hit it hard. And I think, that's where maybe Matt Campbell's ability to identify some guys that aren't the 4 or 5 star guys, but can make themselves into being really good, productive college football players is going to come into play. Like I do think in that regard, Matt Campbell is the right guy to have here right now, because he's had to have that eye for talent. He didn't have a choice when he was at Iowa State. And again, at least for this upcoming year, this first transfer portal run, it's going to be much the same situation. Maybe we'll kick that around a little bit, Booch, when we come back, which is, how do you, if you're Matt Campbell, how are we envisioning that he's setting up his day? Because he's got to get his coaching staff together. He's trying to help support that, lesser down on his list of priorities would be, but I think he's wanting to see them have success in the Pinstripe Bowl, and hey, can I help in some way, and just making this a smooth transition so that you guys feel comfortable going out there and playing for Terry in the Pinstripe Bowl. So I think that's a component of it. But I mean, he's got to be meeting with all of the current players who have eligibility remaining, right? And figuring out, all right, are you going to be here next year? If so, what are we envisioning the role? And then analyzing, I don't know how much tape or how many conversations he's having with the guys that are going to be hitting the transfer portal here, that you're anticipating anyway. And, all right, that we think this is a right fit. And again, you've got to get a feel at least for, all right, we think we're going to have to bring in 15 quality guys or 30 quality guys, or well, we got to bring in 5 and, see what we can do after that. Like there is so much on his plate right now. We'll kick that around maybe a little bit about, all right, well, here's how you have to prioritize what you're going about doing here, especially maybe in the time up to the time that the transfer portal officially opens here. We'll take a break here and we'll kick that around on the other side. You're listening to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube, and we are coming right back.
From decorating the tree to family dinners, gift exchanges, and get-togethers, the holidays are filled with traditions. Why not start a new one this year with a Kia during the Season of New Tradition sales event at Lion Country Kia? No matter where you're traveling this holiday season, the spacious 7-seater 2025 Kia Telluride can get you there. Lion Country Kia has 16 available with as low as 0.9% APR for up to 60 months or up to $2,000 in Kia finance rebates. But that's not all. Lion Country Kia has a great selection of Kia Sorentos, Sportages, Seltos, and more. There's 84 vehicles ready to move. And many have Kia's Season of New Tradition sales event retail bonus cash as high as $1,000. Happy holidays from the staff at Lion Country Kia, 1334 Driveover Street off Shiloh Road behind Sam's Club, State College.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
Lusk & Associates Sotheby's International Realty proudly presents the introduction of our new State College office at 314 South Borough Street in State College. At Sotheby's International Realty, we advertise locally, nationally, and internationally, bringing the best of advertising and promotion to each and every one of our properties, big or small. Call now.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors, people invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
WFXS, the Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority, WFXS America.
98.7, the Fox State College.
And we are back for a final segment on this Thursday of the Goon and Ironhead show. Again, Goon off today, Chris Bucanani, kind enough to fill in. And talking Penn State football, we've been talking some Michigan football with all of this going on out in Ann Arbor. And again, I think we'll be learning, I'm expecting that we'll be learning a lot more about what all is going on here involving Sharon Moore sometime over the next 24 hours. But not a good situation, that is for sure.
No, and the thing is, Ironhead, if I had to guess, I am thinking that Ward Manuel, their athletic director, is not going to end up keeping his job either. So probably you are going to see one of these search firms go out and make a recommendation to. I don't know what their exactly what their chain of command looks like out there. I don't know if it's the president's call. I don't know if the board gets involved. But normally you at least have your athletic director guiding the search. Based on what I'm seeing, they could be out a coach and an AD. Although, again, to your point, they're probably past due to just sweep out the last remnants of the previous regime. So maybe this ends up being better for them in the long run.
Yeah, that could very well be. As far as Penn State, so again, I think Matt Campbell was. Truthfully, if we had gone back to the very beginning, I think Matt Campbell might have been as good a hire as they could have had right out of the gate.
Sure.
Certainly, given the circumstances Penn State was in, it feels like Pat Kraft, to a large degree, pulled a rabbit out of the hat. And now, all of that being said, and I love the hire. I think Matt Campbell is a great fit, a great coach, all of it. As we've talked about many times, Booch, I still think if you're asking me, is it more likely in the next 5 years and I don't think either of these scenarios will play out, but if you're asking me right now, and I love the hire, but if you're asking me, all right, the more likely scenario, Penn State wins a national title within the next 5 years, Penn State doesn't make the playoffs in any of the next 5 years. I think the more of those two scenarios, and again, I love the hire. I think this will work. I don't think this is how it's going to play out. But if you're asking me to hedge my bet, so it's going to be one or the other, I think it's more likely Penn State doesn't make the playoffs in the next 5 years.
Well, that's where you're wrong, Ironhead, because there's going to be there's going to be like 52 playoff spots within the next 3 years. So everyone's going to make the playoffs real soon.
That is actually not a bad point. We are
but
very
you're
likely
actually your point is very well taken, and it's now people are going to say you sound like Kevin Horn, but the reality of it is there's only one national champion every year, right? And we are seeing, and we talked about this when the 12-team playoffs started. Every season, everybody believes they deserve to get in, and especially if they don't tweak this system, although they certainly almost definitely will.
Yeah.
There are going to be years where crazy things happen and JMU and Tulane take 2 of those 12 spots. So, yeah, if you're playing the percentages, if you talk about miss the playoffs for 5 years or win the whole thing within 5 years, you're probably right, which is not to say that that's the way it's going to play out. If there's the middle bet, which is make the playoffs and don't win a national championship, and that seems to be the most likely by far.
For sure. And listen, we just have to see how everything unfolds. Nobody knows with certainty right now what Matt Campbell's recruiting at Penn State is going to look like, whether or not they're going to bring in enough of the high 4-star and 5-star athletes to go win a national title. We can think, and I think he comes across really well. I would think if I'm a kid or the family of a kid that man, with Penn State's name, with this guy there, with Terry Smith involved, I'd feel pretty comfortable sending my kid there and feeling like he has a real chance at success both on and off the field, which hopefully is still a big deal and I think it is to most families and most kids, that it's I want that overall development. I want you looking out for my kid be on the football field as well. All of that being said, so I think Matt Campbell takes over, and he has to have that long-term vision. All right, this is how we're going to go about building this. This is, next year's recruiting class is going to be crucial. We're getting a jump on that. Always going to be looking at the transfer portal, all of the things that come along with it. But it's his job right now. And the immediate areas of address that he has to take on are filling out his coaching staff, filling out his roster, again, having the conversation with all of the players here right now that have eligibility remaining, getting that sorted out, and then figuring out which of the Iowa State kids that are currently on the roster, which of the recruits, and then which of next year's commits may follow him here. And then along with that, there's obviously getting everything else in place, getting familiar with the entire region on the recruiting front, and all of that. I heard you and Landon were talking a little bit about the Spooch, and certainly, I mean, the staff has to be the priority right now, right? I mean, meeting with the kids is going to be critical as well, and just getting the introductions out of the way, and again, figuring out which kids are definitely going to be out of here, and which kids you're at least going to be trying to fight for to retain. But with that is the staff, which is going to be the crucial component to a lot of those kids. Hey, who's my quarterback's coach going to be if I'm Gronk, along with what competition do I have? And right on down the line with the roster, those are going to be the questions, and how comfortable the kids are going to feel with the coaches. But you have to know who the coaches are before you can really start to establish that type of trust and connection.
You got to think they're all going to ask too. That is just, for years,
right?
You hear how important position coaches are. They're the closest to the players. They're the coaches who are often most directly responsible for their development and preparing them to compete to go to the next level. For a lot of reasons, I would have to believe that's one of the first questions that you would ask if you were in the position of a Penn State player deciding if you were going to stay or go, or even a transfer portal guy evaluating your options.
Yeah, and Booch, I may have missed this, so tell me if I have. One of the things that I think is absolutely crucial, position coaches for sure, but the strength and conditioning component of it, Booch, is just vital. And again, there are a bunch of different ways that you can go about the strength and conditioning program, and I think there's a bunch of different programs that are effective. What is crucial is that you have a head coach and a strength coach that are on the same page, and the players buy into it. You know what, this is a program that is going to make me better. I guess I've been assuming, but I don't know that I've seen or heard, and I may have just missed it, but I'm assuming Matt's going to be bringing that part of his staff from Iowa State here, just because of the existing relationship. But I guess I don't know that.
I am, it looks like all of this stuff is like, it's official before it's official. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know that we are HR official, but I think for sure, and everybody knew this, that Chuck Losey was going to follow James Franklin to Virginia Tech. He's been with James forever. And it does look like I'm maybe going to pronounce the name wrong. Reed Kagi, Kagy, who was the strength and conditioning coach at Iowa State, is going to be the guy who follows Matt Campbell here.
So, and again, that person is going to be kind of a day in, day out person in these kids' lives, and that relationship is going to be important. One, because he's going to be largely responsible for their development and from one season to the next. And also, again, just kind of the getting everything to align, to use the James Franklin terminology. You want that alignment, but that is a critical piece, I think, for the kids to feel comfortable with. All right, yeah, this is a guy I can go work out with, and I trust what he's telling me, and all of that stuff. And obviously, you have to have the trust of the coach there. But along with the position coaches, I think is having faith and trust that is going to be something that helps you as a student athlete, as an athlete, get better and make those improvements from one season to the next. So, I have no idea personality wise, or from a just personable standpoint, how that transition is going to go. But that's going to be a big part of this, I think, too, in terms of the initial setup.
You know what I'm also starting to suspect a little bit, Ironhead, is that we've been so fixated for years at Penn State on the strength and conditioning staff. And I do think Fitz did a great job while Bill O'Brien was here. Really transformed the way we looked in the trenches pretty quickly. I think most of these guys know what they're doing. Honestly, I'm not even sure there is that much different to the programs and techniques they use. I understand they're different. I think they're just different paths to the same destination, because Penn State got so much praise for the way we prepared guys to go and put up big numbers at the combine, while we had coaches who were part of the Dwight Galt tree, whether it be Galt himself or then Chuck Losey. But at the same time, we drew a lot of criticism that we seemed to not be as resilient in the fourth quarter as the old school John Thomas conditioned teams were, or even the Fitz teams for the 2 years Bill O'Brien was here, that maybe there were flaws in the way that we were conditioning guys, that we prepared them to put up big numbers, but not necessarily to hold up to the rigors of a Big Ten conference schedule. I don't know. I've actually become disenchanted with this idea that there is some like magical fairy dust that a select few strength and conditioning coaches sprinkle over their players. I think probably most of these guys do a good enough job that if you're a well-coached athlete, you're going to succeed.
I think that's true. I also think it is important that the athletes feel like, all right, this is helping me, and that this is somebody that I get along with. Again, and it doesn't have to be that you're best buddies with them. Probably best that you're not, but it has to be somebody that you respect. And again, that's just more of establishing the personality part. That, all right, yeah, I'm good working out with this guy and having him oversee my development. Yeah, I agree with you.
And really, if any coach is going to be your buddy, it's probably the S&C coach, just given how much time they spend together and the access that strength and conditioning has to the players in the offseason that the rest of the staff does not.
Yeah, true. And so, again, to me, that's just, along with meeting with Matt Campbell, they probably need to be meeting as quickly as they can with the position coaches once they get named, and then strength and condition, just so, again,
excellent point.
You feel good about the overall program that you're signing up for. All right, we are out of time. That's going to wrap things up. Booch, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you, and we will be back. Hopefully, both Goon and I will be here on Tuesday. Stay tuned. We'll see whether that actually transpires or not. But until Tuesday, folks, be good. And
from decorating the tree to family dinners, gift exchanges, and get-togethers, the holidays are filled with traditions. Why not start a new one this year with a Kia during the Season of New Tradition sales event at Lion Country Kia? No matter where you're traveling this holiday season, the spacious 7-seater 2025 Kia Telluride can get you there. Lion Country Kia has 16 available with as low as 0.9% APR for up to 60 months or up to $2,000 in Kia finance rebates. But that's not all. Lion Country Kia has a great selection of Kia Sorentos, Sportages, Seltos, and more. There's 84 vehicles ready to move. And many have Kia's Season of New Tradition sales event retail bonus cash as high high as $1,000. Happy holidays from the staff at Lion Country Kia, 1334 Driveover Street off Shiloh Road behind Sam's Club, State College.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
Lusk & Associates Sotheby's International Realty proudly presents the introduction of our new State College office at 314 South Borough Street in State College. At Sotheby's International Realty, we advertise locally, nationally, and internationally, bringing the best of advertising and promotion to each and every one of our properties, big or small. Call now.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors, people invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
WFXS. The Fox. Your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America. 98.7. The Fox.